I started this trilogy without ever playing the games or seeing the movies or the comics or anything like that, so the experience will probably be quite different to most of you. The idea of mechanical dark teddy bears, to me it's already a pretty cool concept, and I decided to get into the book since I've seen it everywhere, and I gave it a chance. I actually liked it, and I will give you some of my perspectives on it and spoiler-free elements that I think are worthy to consider. Stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video, and I will put on the bottom my socials and on the side my Ko-Fi account. It's basically a site where you can donate a single amount or you can put it on a monthly if you like what I'm doing here and you want to help the channel. I also have my merch link there. Any of these things really helps out and I appreciate it. And to those that already do support the channel and do share it and do comment, I really want to thank you for it, because those that love books should always, in one way or the other, advocate for a culture that brings back a higher level of study and intellect that I think it's necessary for a healthy society. I think there's space for all the other stuff too. Funny videos, all kinds of videos, that's all great. No criticizing any of it. I'm simply saying that channels that discuss these kinds of things should also get a good amount of views. I think it would improve the culture in general. And I'm trying to do my small part on this objective and share with you my love of these topics. In this episode, I am going over Five Nights at Freddy's, The Silver Eyes, which is the first book in the trilogy. It was written by Cawthon and Kira Breed-Wrisley, and hopefully I'm pronouncing their last names correctly. Scott is the creator of Friday Night at Freddy's, and he decided to go with a co-author to actually create the novels, and I think they both did a great job. This edition is from Scholastic Inc. 2016. I haven't seen really a lot of variety in the editions available, so if you do find them, then get whichever edition you think is good. From the start, the book is quite appealing to me because it has a lot of the 1980s nostalgia, and it runs through the entire work, and it's the first thing that grabbed me, at least. If it wouldn't have had that element, I would have skipped the book, even if it was popular and people were reading it. I tend to ignore massive popular works, but like I've said before, a lot of times I like reading books that are popular just to see why they are popular. In other words, almost like a sociological test. I like knowing where people are at socially, mentally, and a good way of knowing this is, you see a book in every corner and it has multiple media manifestations of it. I give it a chance just for that reason, to see what's going on, why are people liking this, etc. And a lot of times I'm highly disappointed. In this one, I actually wasn't disappointed. The novel does contain a lot of these classic tropes found in most works of this type, and actually you see a lot of this feel in the work in Stephen King and similar writers. But there's a couple of twists in the story that, in my opinion, makes it stand out nicely. It is also pretty obvious that the novel is meant for young teens, for young adults as they have it. And to me, that category has always been kind of weird. I remember the first time I started seeing them around, and I never really quite understood what's the point of that category. I think the reason is because adult books, so-called, have become so immersed in adult-themed vulgarity that it requires a separation in category. Because as a kid, you could read Dickens, you could read a lot of adult books and have no problem. But these days, I guess the category is necessary because what today sells for adult literature is really just vulgar or maintains pretty dark topics that are disturbing to younger readers. So again, I understand the reason for the category, but at the same time, it reflects a very strange moment in culture. Since again, I can give to my child Agatha Christie and he's going to be fine. He's not going to be disturbed away from ever reading a book or something like this. But these days, God knows what they're going to put in that book, so I understand the category. But the book feels that it's directed at young teens, and that's what I mean. The writing is kind of surface level, and if I were a young teen, I would probably be offended by the kind of works that are coming out in that category because they seem to talk down to those in that age. And when I was that age, I would read books that were meant for adults and I had no problem understanding them. So assuming that a 13-year-old or a 17-year-old or 19-year-old for some reason cannot comprehend or get challenged enough in a book, to me is an insult. Now, of course, are young teens these days not big readers? Yes, but you just give them the stuff that they have to read and they have to adapt. If you dumb things down, then you're creating the problem that you're trying to overcome. So, kind of surface level writing, but it has a very cool, dark, and disturbing aesthetic in there. And I enjoyed that. In this category of books, the whole engagement between the characters tends to be a little lame, in my opinion, but the book still carries through because of the darker underlying topic. To me, what shines through are the animatronics, obviously, the characters in the work that are not technically human. Because, like I said, the human characters tend to be a little boring for me. Again, I respect it if you think they're not, but to me, a lot of the human interaction there and a lot of the internal drama of the characters, I found it to be quite boring. But the animatronics themselves are so interesting, and the way the authors presented them is so particular that it carries the whole book through. Now, obviously, the book explores the classic fear of machines, human emotions related to things that could go wrong when you combine machines with human aspects. This is a classic concern. You see it somewhat in Frankenstein with the whole science and humanity issue. And I don't think AI and animatronics and all this kind of thing is really that far away from that fear. The philosophical question here is what makes us human? Can we transfer this humanness to machines, to objects, to robots? And I think the work is cool because it actually posits, in my opinion, the notion that human beings have something else beyond mechanical elements. There's a transhuman belief out there that human beings are just machines. It's just very fancy machines. But there's no soul. There's no essence. There's no universal to which we're attached to. A form of radical nominalism that breeds solipsism. But here, the author sustains the soul element in the mystery of the work, and I think from a philosophical standpoint, it's a good thing that it remains a topic of discussion. The other issue explored here is the classic problem of evil. Why do some people enjoy the destruction of the innocent? What happens when someone feels betrayed as a child and then becomes himself a destructor of innocence? The victim becomes a victimizer. An inclination to bring everyone down in the ship with you. And of course, this is a very ancient philosophical question. My job here is just to explore the book itself, and the book doesn't really give you an answer. Obviously, in horror works, the mystery, the incomprehensiveness of violence is part of what makes the book creepy. If you explain it, if you try to somehow dissect the philosophical concern in the work, then the horror goes and becomes intellectual. Lovecraft was correct when he said that a lot of these things can be suggested But the moment you move the novel from supernatural exploration to an intellectual exploration, you're moving it away from emotion to rationality. And once you do that, the fear tones down. So if you want to keep fear, you must keep it in a mystery dynamic. Now, without spoiling the work, I do want to mention something that if you read the book, you're going to know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read it, it may not mean anything to you. But the whole thing they did with the eyes really makes this novel different than most, because the way they play around with this notion and the way it kicks in at some point in the work also kind of deals with this distinction between machine and human. You know, I've seen a lot of these videos where you have these AI robots, the skin is very realistic and the face is realistic, but they can never get the eyes. And of course, no machine can make an eye like a human eye. The human eye is an absurdly complex and beautiful thing. So I don't see anytime soon anyone replicating an eye in the same way as a human eye. But there's something behind people's eyes that reveals something off. I remember reading years ago this notion of the eyes being a good representation, a window to the soul. And it's because when you look at the eyes of any creature, you see something behind it that steps beyond the creature itself. In human beings, it's a lot more dramatic. And that's why I find it disturbing that a lot of younger people these days don't look at you in the eyes when they speak to you. They look away. When I was a kid, if I did that, my grandfather would immediately correct me and say, you must look at people's eyes when you talk to them. It's a sign of respect. Looking away is a sign of disrespect or of weakness. I agree with this, but I think there's an esoteric element here too. Looking at people's eyes is trying to see beyond the flesh into something more profound. And this work, in a way, touches upon that. So it is a short novel, so I think my review should be as short as I can make it. Great start for a trilogy. I can't really see where he's going to take this because, to be honest with you, it seems pretty final at the end. So I wonder where they're going to take this. Not sure, but I am enjoying it. So I will make a playlist for Friday Night at Freddy's, and I'll put the trilogy there as I go through it. And get your own version, whichever version, if you haven't read it. If you've only seen the movies and the video games, I do think that reading the book is always going to be better. Now, this is backwards because usually you have the book and then they make everything else after. In this case, the book comes after all that other media, but I still think it will probably be better. I could be wrong. Put it in the comments if you think the video games are even better than the novel, or if you think the movie is better than the novel. So please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Doing these things really helps the algorithm pick up the channel and present it to other people, and that will really help out, and I appreciate it. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.